Hold on. We're having a fail with our music here. There we go. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Friday 15 with Master B2B. Andy Horror, it's Valentine's Day. Way today. Introing with a little bit of, what would you call that? Acid rock here
Yeah,
for
nothing
Valentine's.
says Valentine's Day like hard rock. In that case,
That's
maybe acid rock.
right. That's right. My name is Brian Beck, and here with Andy Hoare, the co-founders of this Master B2B Thought Leadership Series for B2B e-commerce professionals. Andy, another exciting week. Excited to be here and share another great topic.
Yeah, and you said happy Valentine's Day, and I think you've been itching to show a little graphic here. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Those little
Yeah,
candies, Andy, remember the little candies you would bring to like grade school and have them to share with all your friends, the little hearts, pure sugar, good stuff.
well, my mom was a school teacher, and she used to say these were her favorite days. Said very facetiously because nothing's better than putting a bunch of kindergartners and first graders on a sugar high.
Right. Not a good idea for all you parents out there. Anyhow, happy Valentine's Day, Andy. So you were in Atlanta this week at a roundtable at the Buckhead Club. Tell us about it. It looks like it was a great event.
Yeah, we got like I said, we got the class photo there, and I was joking with these guys that I only have one objective for tonight. It's not that you guys learn, it's not that we share best practices, not that you meet new people. It's that this goes down in history as the best Atlanta roundtable, knowing that you've done the prior two. So, and they all agree whether it was true or not. They're like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and say that. So, congratulations, me.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see when the reviews come in, Mr. Hoare. But no, these are great events and great discussions. And you had some fantastic people there as usual. I think 20, 25 practitioners were there. So
Yeah.
it's really a great group. Exciting.
Yeah, and really, big companies, big names, important people. I don't know if I had to add that up, there's probably about 70, 80, maybe $100 billion worth of GMV in that room.
Oh, easy.
Just in Atlanta alone.
Yeah, incredible. All right, well, some breaking news, Andy. This week, but Shopify just 2 days ago released their Q4 earnings. And guess what? A lot talk about B2B. According to Shopify president Harley Finkelstein, the company achieved 6 consecutive quarters of 100% year-over-year GM growth in B2B. Notably, he said quarter 4 saw 132% increase. So these guys are getting serious, Andy, and you follow this sector very closely. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, if we're being honest, it's a large year-over-year growth because the year before was very small to begin with. So they're going off a small base.
Sure.
And I would say to date, they've had a lot more success in the B2B mid-market. And sort of organically than they have in the B2B enterprise market. It's going to take some time to get there. That's a hill to climb. There's a lot of reputational value around being in that space. They need a kind of partnership set up. They're getting there. They're getting some big names, and companies are rethinking this. I called it years ago the Shopify-ication of B2B because they're really like these monolithic solutions that were expensive, and there were these kind of B2C like smaller solutions. And I said the gravitational pull of the B2C like ones, especially on the pricing side, was dragging down, put it negatively, the price of things. And the fact that this is highly templated makes it a lot easier for people to get started. So simplicity, cost, driving the Shopify. Plus, frankly, nobody knows where Magento is at this point. They were acquired by Adobe. They've sort of quasi exited the space to some extent. I don't know. I follow the space and I don't even know what they're doing. But I think they created a power vacuum, and Shopify and some others like BigCommerce are really stepping in to fill it. So yeah, we'll see more from Shopify, but that's a big hill to climb. But they're very, very much committed to getting there.
Yeah, it seems like it. They're getting serious about it, and they do some things with us this year. So good stuff. Well, our topic today, Eddie, who should be on the digital buying committee, digital technology buying committee? So, this all stems from really a lot of risk associated with these types of big platforms. And I've lived this myself, Andy, as a VP of e-commerce. I've been in situations where, I've had to re-platform several times in a very short time period. Once this is early in my career, I re-platformed twice in the course of a year. And it's unbelievable the amount of disruption that can cause. Gartner has this statistic. 25 to 50% of large IT projects in e-commerce either fail outright or do not deliver expected ROI. And people can lose their jobs over this stuff. McKinsey reports that 50% of digital transformation leaders are fired or pushed out when major projects fail. Again, the pressure on this stuff is huge. And if you're leading e-commerce or any sort of digital transformation, if you're a CDO, you have to place bets. You have to make a choice on technology because it's a foundational element of what you have to deliver as a business leader. But these are very complex projects, and there's a lot of points of potential failure.
Can I make a quick point in that slide?
Yeah,
one thing I find interesting about this, maybe it's just a phraseology thing, but it says digital transformation, which is a strategic, pervasive sort of thing. And then in the same sense, it says when major projects fail.
Right.
Well, this is part of the problem with digital, especially digital transformation. It's not a project. It's a program. Sure. It's a way of being. It's an existential thing. And so maybe it's just a phraseology thing with the McKinsey report, but I can't reconcile those two things. I'm in charge of digital transformation, but I got fired for a project failure.
Right. Yeah. I don't know the context of the report as much, but maybe that's something we could do at another Friday 15, right? There's so many topics.
Maybe next week.
That's right. Maybe. Stay tuned. But the point is, look, the point though is, this technology stuff is very risky when you have to switch an e-commerce platform or a ERP system or a CMS or a PIM, product information management system. These projects can cost millions of dollars and take a lot of time and organizational effort. And so one way companies have mitigated or leaders have mitigated the risk is by forming technology buying committees, groups of people that are cross-functional, involving different aspects of the organization, finance and sales and marketing and operations and things. And the idea and why do they do this? Well, the idea is that it reduces the risk of investment failures because you're getting, people across the organization aligned. There's buy-in. There's as we're developing business requirements for these things, they're shared across the organization. It's arguably it speeds up decision making because you're involving all these decision makers up front. It increases, buy-in and adoption once the system goes live or even during the implementation process. So in theory, the buying committee should make a lot of this easier and faster, less risky for the leader that's driving it. Everybody knows what they're getting into up front. Something goes wrong, people have ownership and accountability to it, and there's less sort of, hey, you screwed up, right? Because you didn't do this. Maybe they don't say it that way, but that's what they're saying. And so, the question though is, so if you form one of these committees, who should be on it, right? And so, Andy, I've talked a lot about this before we got on the podcast today. Who do you think should be on it? And you got all these different options. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, you can't have everybody on it because then the process will grind to a halt and you'll have least common denominator decision making. On the other end of the spectrum, you can't have an autocrat just make a decision. I'm in charge, this is it, and damned be what everybody else thinks. There's a sweet spot somewhere in the middle. And I know we got some comments on this because not surprisingly, and I find this a lot in B2B, there are some extremes on this one. So what do we hear from our audience?
Yeah, well, So just to give, and we had some interesting comments on LinkedIn on this. We'll share them. But just to give you those listeners who are listening to the podcast some context. You've got CIOs, CTOs could be on this, CFOs, finance, CEO or the executive leadership, like the COO, obviously the director or VP of e-commerce. That's a natural if this is commerce related. Technology, marketing leadership, like the CMO, sales teams. You could argue that sales ought to be on this because they have a lot to do with adoption. Customer service, IT and security. Should they be on it? Operations, supply chain, fulfillment. You could have a committee of 300 people trying to make a decision on this stuff, right?
And also, as important, not just who's going to be on the committee. That was the focus of this, but what should their roles be? That could be another for the
Yeah.
future conversation, because you could argue we should have representation from everywhere. Again, nobody's going to get fired for saying everybody,
Right.
but if everybody has equal authority and equal responsibility, then it's not going to happen. And there's not an argument that everybody should have equal authority and responsibility. So that would be an interesting question. What are the roles and what should people be doing in this broader context?
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's interesting. I did, as you know, in my book, I have a lot of case studies, and one of the companies I often refer to and really focused on in the book is called Illumina. They're a large $3 billion biotechnology company. They very successfully rolled out a very complex digital commerce platform, which involved integration into e-procurement and punch out and EDI, as well as direct e-commerce ordering. There's a lot of adoption issues. But they formed a steering committee, and the roles that the people played in that were really in reviewing and formulating not necessarily the details of the business requirements, but making sure that was clear, that there were clear understanding of the roles of the different functional units once this rolled out, during implementation and during rollout. So it was really a lot about alignment. That second bullet on the last slide I shared, which was all about making sure that we get the sales team working with, for example, functionally this rollout, and that was clear that the executive team was behind it as well. So I think the role isn't necessarily to actually do the implementation or define the business requirements, but to review them and make sure that where these functions are touched. So we got some good feedback on LinkedIn, Andy. We had a lot of comments on this. And Dave Allen, director of e-business from Sager Electronics, he said, "Hey, we need an all the above answer to answer this question correctly." In other words, Dave is saying, "Hey, it needs to be everybody, right, that's involved in this kind of a process," which I was echoed by a few other folks. But we also had a contrarian view here from Rick Wingender. He's a fractional CMO, CDO, former director of e-commerce at Mueller Sports Medicine. And Rick said, "Hey, instead of a massive committee with too many voices, in my opinion, companies, whether B2B or B2C, should consider a smaller cross-functional SWAT team that includes," and he listed them, "a business leader, the head of digital or e-commerce, to ensure commercial viability, a finance partner, CFO or VP of finance, to keep financial accountability in check, a technical lead, CTO, CIO, to ensure that the tech stack integrates well." He thinks that, for example, customer care, sales voices, operational, other aspects of the business are important, but not at this stage. And he goes on to say, listen, those are implementation considerations. The people you want in your committee are really the ones he highlighted. What are your reactions to this, Andy?
Yeah, you're gonna be surprised to hear me say this, but Congress is no bastion for efficiency, but they do have a process in place that does work. I'm not kidding. The U.S. Congress, when they have somebody come for approval, they have a subcommittee, do the due diligence around it, the hard work, ask the tough questions, and then a larger committee will vote on that. And then it goes to the floor where everybody gets to weigh in, and they get like a yes or no response, right? Mm-hmm. That process is actually the process that they should probably be using here. Like Rick said, a smaller team to kick the tires, do the due diligence, ask all the tough questions, do the customer reference calls. I mean, you can't have a team of 25 people doing customer reference calls, but you could have a smaller group that does all that and then reports to the larger group what they found, and the larger group will then make a decision based on what the smaller group has found.
Yeah, I think your risk in Dave, all due respect, I think if if you have a group that's enormous and has sort of all the above, it's going to slow the process down. You're going to have too many people worried about too many things. But to layer onto what Rick said, I think I agree with him on those three roles, but I think you have to have sales. I think you need a sales leadership. There's just too much risk in adoption. If you don't have sales leadership involved early in this process, you'll end up with your sales team fighting against e-commerce. It's just it's still
already on board. I agree with you, but yeah, if they're not, and generally they aren't, I would agree with you. They are kind of but this all depends on how mature the company is, how large the company. I mean, if you have a super mature small company, you can go a little more autocratic, smaller team. If you have a super digitally immature but large enterprise, you're going to have to go broader, I think. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. I've not seen too many examples where you could exclude sales from it and you ended up with a optimal result.
Yep, exactly. All right, well, let's find out what the industry thought overall. We had a lot of votes on this. We put up a poll a couple days ago and had quite a few votes. And it was interesting. We asked the question, what are the most important non-digital functions to have represented on your technology buying committee for e-commerce? Guess what? Number one was operations, which I don't agree with. Sorry, everybody. Number two was sales, which I do agree with. Then marketing and finance were down at 14% each. So operations at 40, sales at 31, finance and marketing were at 14%. And so, the operations, look, I get it, right? You need to make sure, and I've lived this, and I've been down this road where if your operations team isn't on board and really doing, is supportive of things like inventory allocation for e-commerce the right way, and the fulfillment is required. I get it. For many companies, it's a big step for the operations team to move into this. But it's about that's really about execution. If I have to decide who the most important people are on my, as Rick was saying, on my strike team or my SWAT team, I'm not sure I'm including operations. I'm definitely including sales, and I'm definitely including finance. What are your reactions to this, Andy?
Yeah, I like the way we asked the question. We asked about non-digital and we forced the issue, because if you don't, you're not going to get the right kind of response. And I love this because this feels so B2B to me. In that you ask them who should be on this that's non-digital. Well, of course, the operational people, because we have to implement this, right? And again, nobody's going to get fired for saying operational people.
Right.
Is that really the most important non-digital function? I mean, you can make an argument for the other three are substantially more important. I'll start with, if you're really a customer-driven company, shouldn't marketing be at the table? We just talked about sales, right? And how important in a lot of B2B companies, especially for a distributor where the sales team sees e-commerce as an existential threat in many cases, especially the less mature one. Sales has got to be involved in this.
Absolutely.
But perhaps the best argument, and Jared Blank pointed this out to us, finance. How often do we hear people talk about on both sides, the finance team doesn't believe our ROI, or the finance team telling us? Nobody ever came to us with any kind of metrics that really made any sense to us. After all of this, how can you not argue that, say, finance is really the critical one? So I could say, the other three are far more important in the operational side, which you said correctly is an implementation issue.
Absolutely. The crazy thing is we've talked through this, Andy. There's a lot of B2B companies that don't even have a marketing function. They're sales driven. I don't know if you've noticed that, but anyway, so just, you said customer driven, and it just kind of all coalesced for me. But my goodness,
to that point. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I had this idea when I was still at Forrester. I'm like, how many B2B companies have a CMO? And this was like in 2015.
Yeah.
And what do you think the number was? What percentage? So B2C companies was about 2/3 had a CMO.
Yeah. Right.
B2B companies, 33%.
Wow. That's wild.
And at the time, and I think I did it again a couple of years later, and the number was still like under 40%. Wow. So most B2B companies don't have CMOs. And that, as we know, marks a shift in an organization away from being like a sales-led, operations-led to a customer-focused organization. Say what you will about marketing. That's in theory and ostensibly what their job is to acquire and retain customers, right? Customers. That's what they focus on. But in B2B companies, they still think of sales as kind of leading the effort when it comes to customer interaction. And in a traditional sense, yes. But when you're competing for attention on the big bad internet, you're not having sales do that. That's marketing. So I think we're still behind the curve a bit in B2B with that.
Yes, we are.
But yeah.
We'll get there. All right, folks. Well, we're up at our usual Friday 20 here, Andy. We just want to make a few announcements. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. This has been a great session and discussion. We just released a report called 5 Keys to Unlocking the Growth from the Long Tail. You can download it for free from our website. If you go to masterb2b.com/5-keys-unlocking-growth-long-tail, it's on the screen here.
Should we say quickly what we mean by long tail? It's two things. One is in terms of customers, so smaller mom and pop, the ones that are a little too small to assign your sales team to from the conversation we just had on the customer side. And on the product side, these are the infrequent, slower moving SKUs. So they're long tails for both customers and product assortment.
Yeah, this report covers how do you get more out of that long tail, whether it's using marketplaces like Amazon or your own marketplace, or expanding your own direct e-commerce. But what else is involved in doing this, and what's the investment? So, really great report. Encourage you guys to take a look at it. We brought that to market in partnership with VTEX and VML. Want to remind everyone that Master B2B has our forum. It's free. It's for practitioners, qualified practitioners. No solution providers or vendors in there, guys. This is just practitioners talking to practitioners, asking questions. Go to our website, masterb2b.com, look for forum, and you can sign up there. Also, roundtables. We talked about Atlanta early on. Next week, I'll be in Dallas. We have a great group of people coming together for that one. We're also going to be in Cleveland, Denver, Minneapolis, Charlotte, Cincinnati, Los Angeles, New York City, and St. Louis in the next couple of months. Go to masterb2b.com, future events, to check out those and register or apply to attend. We also have our summit, Andy, about a month away at the University of Chicago, March 12th, Mindshare, 100 people. It's going to be awesome. Again, practitioners can go online and look to register for that. Just go on and look for our forum under future events. And finally, I want to remind everyone that we have our podcasts, Friday 15 podcast available. All these sessions on Spotify, Google, Apple, on our website, and also on YouTube. Check it out. Just look for our name, Master B2B. Andy, any final words as we're at over Friday 20 here?
No, let's continue the conversation about this, though, because a lot of companies get this one wrong. They bureaucratize the decision making when it comes to buying a platform, and they miss the most important thing, which is, what are we doing this for?
Yep, absolutely. All right, folks. Well, we'll see you next week on our next Friday 15. Thanks for listening in today.